We're now going to switch gears here, and we're going to talk about the one victim of Antifa violence and what happened to the killer, right? Or sorry, suspected killer. Trans rights indeed. Every wall will fall. All right. Activist suspected in Portland shooting was fired at 30 times by police, official says. Eyewitnesses have said that officers did not identify themselves before opening fire on Michael Ryanol. Ryanol? I guess that's what he would be called. When he was in his car. Four officers fired more than 30 rounds at an anti-fascist activist who had been on the run after being named in the killing of a man during a pro-Trump rally in Portland, Oregon. An official said on Tuesday. This is an older story, guys, so I understand. I'm retreading a lot of ground that other people have. Law enforcement officials killed Michael Ronall on the 3rd of September after they cornered him in his car outside an apartment complex in Lacey, Washington. Reinl was the suspect in the fatal shooting of Aaron J. Danielson, who was killed at a pro-Trump car caravan in Portland on the 29th of August. The U.S. Attorney Bill Barr said following Reinl's death that Reinl had been located in Washington State by members of the U.S. Marshal Service, the FBI, and state and local law enforcement had been shot and killed while attempting to escape and arrest and brandishing a firearm. Now, I need you to keep in mind that brandishing a firearm is a very specific thing for a legal, like the attorney general to specifically say. So, like, in order to have brandished a firearm, you need to be, like, pointing it at people. Like, that's what brandishing a firearm means. Carrying it prominently and pointing it at people. But questions have swirled around the events after witnesses gave conflicting accounts of the moments leading up to Reinl's death, with many raising questions about the officer's sudden use of lethal force. The New York Times interviewed 22 people who were near the scene and reported that all but one said they did not hear officers identify themselves or give commands before they started shooting. Now, guys, I don't know about you all. All right. George Floyd was not a thug, my dude. George Floyd was a citizen, and you're banned, okay? Have a nice day. I'll continue fighting for your rights, though. Um, let's see. The New York Times interviewed 22 people who were near the scene and reported that all but one said they did not hear officers identify themselves or give commands before they started shooting. The paper also reported on the official statements of the officers to investigators, which have not yet been released to the public, noting that one officer alleged he thought he saw Reinhold raise a gun inside the vehicle, but that two others said they did not. The Thurston County Sheriff's Office is investigating the killing. Lieutenant Ray Brady said on Tuesday that Reinhold had a loaded .380 caliber handgun in his front pocket. I'm not a gun person. I don't know how to say that. And the officer found him with his hand on or near the gun after he was killed. Authorities are still investigating whether the gun was used in the Portland shooting days earlier. The officers who fired at Reinl were part of a multi-agency federal task force and had pulled up in two unmarked cars, Brady said. The officers were not wearing body cameras, and there is no surveillance footage of the killing. Interesting. So, guys, let's recap just what we have here so far. We have multiple cars pulling up on a suspect. Again, a suspect. Pulling up on him in unmarked cars, stepping out, not announcing themselves, and shooting a man dead while he was in his car. Witnesses overwhelmingly report that they did not announce themselves, and also all three cops who riddled him with over 30 bullets, reported different stories about whether or not he had his gun out. Which, again, I need to remind you that Bill Barr said that the suspect was brandishing a firearm. And again, brandishing is very clearly pointing at someone, pointing a firearm at someone. So All of this is very strange and a bit disturbing. It should be disturbing when police, who are not, I need to remind you, supposed to murder people before their day in court, just pull up, don't announce themselves, fire 30 bullets into a suspect, and then leave. Okay, that's not how police are supposed to work in the United States. Hello, Riot Girl Callie. Everyone has a crush on AOC. She's very cute, and her policies are even cuter. Um, the officers who fired at yep, we already went over that. An autopsy showed that Reinhold died of gunshot wounds to the head and upper torso. Earlier that day, Portland police had obtained a warrant to arrest him on second-degree murder and unlawful use of a firearm for the killing of Danielson. Um, Interesting that the warrant was not bring him in dead or alive. It was to arrest him, which, makes it pretty weird how they didn't identify themselves prior to murdering him in his car. A witness, Garrett Lewis, told the New York Times he was watching the shooting while trying to get his 8-year-old son out of the way. He said the officers began shooting so suddenly that he initially assumed they were criminals gunning down an enemy, not police. There was no get out of the car, there was no stop, they just got out of the car and started shooting. So, not only did these police officers not identify themselves, they literally just pulled up, stepped out of the car, and just gunned him down like a dog. Reinhold, 48, described himself as an anti-fascist and was a father of two who spoke about providing security at Black Lives Matter protests. Something that some people might do, given that Black Lives Matter protests have been, in the past, attacked by far-right agitators, sometimes with deadly results. In an interview with Vice, published hours before he was killed, Reinhold said he acted in self-defense at the pro-Trump rally, saying, "Had I not acted, I am confident that my friend and I am sure I would have been killed because I wasn't going to stand there and let something happen." So, again, his argument in this interview was that he was acting in self-defense when he shot Aaron J. Danielson, which, unfortunately, he'll never get his day in court to prove that because the police, who were supposed to bring him in alive, decided instead to shoot him dead without announcing themselves as soon as they arrived on the scene. Putting in danger, I might add, innocent bystanders, including children. 8-year-old son. Donald Trump called Reinhold's death retribution and stated at the first presidential debate that "I sent in the U.S. Marshals, they took care of business." Details of the killing are emerging at a time when there is growing concern about escalating political violence and that the ways the president has encouraged far-right groups and white supremacists. Research shows that anti-fascist activities had not been linked to any deadly violence in the U.S. before the shooting in Oregon, despite the president's repeated warnings about the far left. The FBI and the Department of Homeland Security regard white supremacists and far-right groups as the most lethal domestic terror threat. True, we talked about this like 2 weeks ago. Now, you might be thinking to yourselves, well, okay. Well, that's all very serious. It certainly seems like this might have been an extrajudicial killing. Seems like maybe the police overstepped their bounds and just murdered a father of two without giving him his day in court, possibly for political reasons. But surely that can't be the case in the United States of America, especially under a president who, extols the value of law and order. Surely not, right? Well, here's Donald Trump during a recent rally talking about this specific specific event.
We sent in the U.S. Marshals. Took 15 minutes, it was over. 15 minutes, it was over. We got him. They knew who he was. They didn't want to arrest him. In 15 minutes, that ended. Anyway, and they called themselves peaceful protesters. We sent in the U.S. Marshals. Took 15 minutes, it was over. 15 minutes, it was over. We got him.
We got him.
They knew who he was. They didn't want to arrest him. And 15 minutes, that ended.
They knew who he was, and they didn't want to arrest him. And 15 minutes, that ended. That disjointed sentence, ladies and gentlemen, is the President of the United States bragging about the police violating the law to kill a man who was owed a day in court under the legal system that, last I checked, is still in effect in the United States of America. This is, by the way, what I mean when I say that Trump is a fascist. This is an element of that. Praising extrajudicial killings, praising the use of state force to kill people, despite the fact that they are, by law, by everything that we consider law and order, owed a day in court before a judge. It's pretty incredible. And you know what? Here's another little fun fact for you. Just a reminder that the U.S. Marshals here were actually deputized local cops. So, as a just a little thing, the U.S. Marshals, the federal government, deputized the local cops to go and kill this man. That's basically the story we are piecing together here now. Wait, I just closed that tab. I didn't want to do that. I need it for later. No. Reopen close tab. There we go. New eyewitness accounts. Feds didn't identify themselves before firing on Portland Antifa shooting suspect. Again, these are cops who have no body cameras. There's no surveillance footage. Yeah, they are giving conflicting accounts of the incident. And witnesses, there are 22 witnesses, say they didn't identify themselves and just showed up and started shooting. So, like, I don't know about you, but I don't want to live in a country where, cops act like assassins. I don't want to live in that kind of a country. Because we let this sort of behavior slide now. Do you know what happens later? Under a fascist, under a unfettered fascist, cops become assassins for the U.S. government. They can literally just go and kill anybody and then justify it after the fact. That's literally what happened in this case. Yeah, 2 silver SUVs gunned towards a Reinhold, tires squealing as they skidded to a stop in front of his VW, pinning his car in. Deputized U.S. Marshals burst from the vehicles, aiming military rifles at him. The official line is Reinhold jumped out of his car, his hand on his .38 caliber pistol in his pocket, defying a shouted command, "Stop, police." That's the official story. What happens next remains unclear even among law enforcement officials who participated. One deputy U.S. Marshal told investigators with the Thurston County Sheriff's Office that Reinhold pointed a gun at him. Another deputy marshal told detectives that Reinhold had his hand on his pistol and was in the process of pulling the gun out of his pocket when officers fired. The gun was in Reinhold's right. The gun was in Reinhold's right front pants pocket when detectives discovered it or recovered it. Strange that it would still be in his pocket when deputies are claiming that he had pulled it out and was pointing it at them. Maybe as he lay dying, he decided to, put it in his pocket just to, he wanted to have it put away. Civilian eyewitnesses interviewed by the Oregon Public Broadcasting and ProPublica and other public statements offer similarly inconsistent and sometimes conflicting recollections. They agree that they heard no warning from federal agents and saw no flashing lights that indicated the arrival of law enforcement, just a fusillade that one neighbor likened to a scene out of the video game Call of Duty. Reinl, 48, died in the street from gunshot wounds to his head and torso. The shots were fired by two Pierce County Sheriff's deputies, a Lakewood police officer, and a Washington State Department of Corrections employee. What the hell? All deputized by U.S. Marshal Service and serving on a Tacoma-based fugitive task force, a common and standard procedure among local federal partnerships. A U.S. Marshal was also part of the team but did not fire. Investigators haven't said how many shots officers aimed at Reinhold. From the other account, we know that over 30 shots were fired. It might never be possible to determine what exactly happened in the estimated 15 seconds of gunfire that left Reinhold dead, because the men who shot him were not wearing body cameras, lacking in security cameras. 3 people who witnessed the critical segments of the shooting have not been interviewed by police. Strange that 3 witnesses to the shooting have not been interviewed by police. The factors that led to fatal police shootings are often second-guessed, especially in cases where there's no clear-cut documented reason for lethal force, and questions about police accountability drove this summer of racial justice protests across the United States, including the dueling political rallies at which Danielson was killed. Reinhold's ensuing death, justified or not, also raises questions about Donald Trump's tendency to talk about law enforcement as a political tool. Anyway, we're getting into wider questions here, deviating from the case. But, let's see, is this a longer clip? No, it's the same clip. Okay. Yeah, Trump gloats about U.S. Marshals killing of Portland Antifa suspect. Oh yeah, the Patriot Act does technically empower the U.S. to basically do anything it wants. We should get rid of that. I think. Yeah. So we have the president gloating about. Let's see. Yeah, killing this man. You know, it is, however, like whether or not he had his hand on a gun that was partially withdrawn from his pocket, he is still a citizen of the United States. He does have a right to bear arms, um, especially if unidentified men drive up and get out with assault rifles. He does have a right to try and defend himself, especially if they're not identifying themselves in any way as police officers. Just as a point of note here. So like, just so we're clear. Yeah, 5 witnesses had said they never saw Reinhold holding a weapon, and that the shooting began as soon as officers arrived in unmarked vehicles. Interesting. So yeah, the one perpetrator of Antifa deadly violence in the United States will never see a day in court. We will never know the full story behind that. Specifically because our government approved the extrajudicial killing of a suspect in the case. And our president applauded it on the national stage. So much for law and order. I just want you to, I want to be clear to conservatives out there. If you think that you believe in law and order, Donald Trump is not your guy. You cannot simultaneously vote for Donald Trump and believe that you are voting for law and order in a country where police officers are allowed to kill suspects. You just can't, yeah, like, you believe in law and order for some people. As long as those other people aren't you, you're fine with it.